Good morning. I want to add my welcome to everyone who is new and everyone who is newly returned. And I want to extend that also to the online campus. We see you out there. You think you're hiding, but we know you're there. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for spending your Sunday with us. Our talk title today is called Curiouser and Curiouser. And I think it's fun because everywhere, obviously this is an Alice in Wonderland reference, but it also, kind of pulls up a Harry Potter reference for the certain special kind of nerds in the room. Ollivander helps Harry pick his wand and says, "Curious, how curious." And there was something special about his wand that caught Ollivander's attention. And I think it's interesting that where I was finding this word curious, or especially curiouser, were all fantasy tales. They were all made up stories where there's some element of magic or fantasy, as in, this is not the way the real world works. The real world does not work in this realm of curiosity. And how very like a New Thought congregation to decide that we are going to approach life very differently than perhaps the larger culture, the larger society, and that we in fact are willing to go into a place that has traditionally been seen as unusual, unlikely, or might not work. Quite an introduction, eh? So, because we're working on our paths from our idea that every path leads home, from our annual theme, let's take a peek at the paths we might be pointing to today. We're looking at the path of self-responsibility, because everything we're going to discuss today around this idea of curiosity and wonder really requires being aware of our choices and our behaviors and our mindsets. We're going to look at connection, because this is very much something that impacts the way we are in relationship. And we're going to look at forgiveness. There might be some self-forgiveness, there might be some forgiveness of others, and certainly a forgiveness of our stance on the way we looked at the world before this conversation. The idea to talk about curiosity as a spiritual practice comes from this book, which is the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. We just completed a 4-week class, and 46 people participated in this class, about half of them here from New Vision Center and half of them from centers and organizations all over North America. And the general consensus seems to have been, I'll let you guys fill it in, that this was really, really good. We need lots more. Yes? You want more? I'll give you more. So this week and next week, I've picked out a couple of points from this wonderful book that I believe we can take down to a granular level and actually begin to integrate into our lives, whether we've read the book or not. So that is the intention. And the commitment we are peaking at is actually commitment number 2 this week. I commit to learning through curiosity. I commit to learning through curiosity. And I have had people say to me when I'm facilitating this class in previous years, how else would you learn? You have to be curious to learn, don't you? You'd think. And yet we are very committed to what we think we already know. Take a breath. I already saw eyes get wider. We're early in the talk for the paranoia. Come on, breathe with me, friends. I haven't gotten to the scary stuff yet. So let me paint the picture. You are in a meeting at work. There is a very important project that must be handled in a timely, efficient, and cost-effective manner. There are 6 people around the table with you. You know how to do this. You've done it before. You know exactly what worked last time. You know exactly how to do it. You're a professional, yes? You're an extraordinary professional. I believe it. I can see it. And then the other people around the circle start talking, and they have these other ideas of how to approach this problem. And they are stupid ideas. They're terrible ideas. You don't know how they would make that work, and it's absolutely not in alignment with what you think should happen. And they are so sure that this can work. And how frustrated are you right now? You're trapped in this meeting. They are not listening to you. They do not understand that you are the superior understander of this situation. They think they are. Can you imagine? Frustration levels are rising up. How likely is it that we're going to come to a successful conclusion in this meeting? Approximately 0% likely. Now, I am sure that no one in this room has ever been in a situation like that. Certainly, I never have. You know you're right. You know the other person's crazy. The other person thinks you're the crazy one. Ooh. And then up floats into your mind from 1,000 different therapy sessions this phrase that people keep saying to you. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Oh. Oh. Just breathe it in. Just breathe it in. The problem isn't being right. You're right. You did it before. It worked, yes? You are correct. You are right. The problem isn't being right. The problem is being stuck on being right. The problem was thinking that you're the only right one in the conversation. The problem is believing there's one right way and all the other ways are wrong. We're still breathing? Ooh. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge to see when we've gotten into this, this tight, enclosed thing, because when we are chasing this sense of being right, we go into what I would call defensive posture. It can look like this. Just me? Yeah. It can look like cutting people off in conversation. It can look like asking a question that sounds, let me see if I can recreate this. Well, what do you think we should do about the I-20 overpass? What I think we should do is we don't even let them get a word in. That is a sign that we're stuck on this idea of being right, or we're just so honed in on our own path forward that it does not even occur to us that there are other paths. It can look like fighting for why yours is right and theirs is wrong. It can look like defending your pattern of thinking or your progression of how you got to where you are. And it can really end in talking in circles. Ever been in the endless meeting where it just the circles never end? When we find ourselves in that endless meeting where nothing is shifting, everybody's saying the same thing over and over again, and nothing is moving, I am willing to bet everything I have and a small Pomeranian that everybody in the room is committed to being right. And from that place, nothing moves. Nothing moves. So a question we ask is, why do I feel like I need to defend the truth? If I'm right and that's the truth, my way is the only way and that's the truth, why do we feel like we need to defend it? If little Addie came running up to me right now and said, grass is purple and Reverend Karen is an elephant, would I argue with her about it? If Bobby came to me right now and said, you don't like being a minister and this isn't for you, would I argue with him about it? When something is absolutely not true, we don't feel like we need to argue about it. When we know our own truth, Reverend Karen knows that she's a human being. I know I'm supposed to be minister, and I haven't seen any purple grass, at least this day. I know that grass is green. I don't need to defend the greenness of grass. And yet, how often have we found ourselves absolutely convinced we're right, absolutely convinced that's the truth, and we're defending it? Something's going on there. It's usually that we're not as sure as we think we are. We're right, but maybe we're partially right. We're right, but maybe we're right based on an assumption that we kind of know we haven't checked out all the way. We're right, but maybe there's other ways of being right. Now it starts to get interesting. And something in us, in the brilliance of us, knows that there's more to the rightness that we bring because the defensiveness rises up. Inside of us, we are wise. Inside of us, we know. We know. The poet E.E. Cummings said, "Once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity, wonder, spontaneous delight, or any experience that reveals the human spirit." Once we believe in ourselves, what if we were able to pause in that moment and think within ourselves, well, I know I'm right. I know my way can work. I wonder what else can work. How does that start to shift the energy? I know what I'm talking about. I wonder what they know that I don't know. Now there's room in the air to breathe. There's room to have some conversation. It's about opening up to wonder. It's about opening up to this idea that there's more to know. So I moved here in 1999, and I was 24 years old. And I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, which is a lovely place, but they have ice there, so I had to leave. And for about the first year, you're making friends. We're making friends with the other parents at the preschool. We're meeting up to go out, doing the thing. And people would say, hey, we have the best Mexican food here. You're in the Southwest now. We've got some of the best Mexican food in the world, outside of Mexico, presumably. And I would say firmly and assuredly every time, I don't care for Mexican food. Could we pick somewhere else? And of course, they're lovely, and we would pick somewhere else. And this went on for a year. And my husband at the time said not a thing about it because he'd been with me for 7 gajillion years at that point, and he'd heard me say, I don't care for Mexican food. Can we pick a different place? In Iowa, too. And then one day, a really wonderful person, who is my best friend to this day, said, can I ask a question? Sure. What don't you like about Mexican food? I don't like refried beans. That's literally the entire story. Now, if you've eaten Mexican food in Iowa, you would understand that it's basically refried beans and a tortilla and some cheese. Like, that's the whole story. And she kind of tipped her head to one side the way she does, and she said, you could ask them to leave that off. I was like, well, then what? Would it be a plain tortilla? She said, how about you trust me and we go get some Mexican food? If I'm wrong, I'll buy dinner the next 3 times. But I bet you do like Mexican food. I eat Mexican food now. It's still not my favorite, but I can find things that I like there that do not, in fact, have refried beans, or I can ask them to leave it off. Turns out I'm also not a sour cream fan. They can leave that off too. I had an assumption that based off of a couple of experiences, I knew the entirety of a nation's cuisine and my capacity to enjoy it. It's super realistic, right? We all have things that we are closing out of our life, out of our experience, because we are walking through an assumption based on thinking we know more than we know and that there are not more answers. And all of that is fixed with curiosity, with being willing to open up to wonder. Now, when we're in that conversation around that contentious kitchen table or office table where everybody thinks they're right and nobody really wants to hear what anybody else has to say, it can be intimidating to decide to open up to curiosity with those faces coming at you. You know the faces? And they see your face as that. You're one of their faces that are saying, I'm right and you're not. Ah. This collective we, as New Vision Center, have the benefit of having spiritual principles and beliefs to support us in moving out of that place of assumption and into a place of a deeper walk. And some of those come from our greater teaching and from our what we believe statements. So rather than pull an Ernest Holmes quote, I decided to just pull the actual precepts, some actual points that support us in this movement. The first one is we teach over and over again, everyone is whole, complete, and perfect because we are all out picturings of divine energy. We are already seated with perfection. It's true of me. I claim it, I am it. We say it at the end of service every week. It's true of everyone. It's true of the faces that are glaring you down in that meeting. Every single person is whole, complete, and perfect because they have the divine indwelling them. Very different than, got to look out for number one. In corporate America, it's cutthroat. Which do we want to be? Both are right. Corporate America can be cutthroat, but we get to experience that which we put into it. Do we want to be someone who looks at the world as if everything is cutthroat, or do we want to be someone who looks at the world as if everyone is whole, complete, and perfect, even the people who do not currently agree with me? And the second precept is that everyone can become a revealer of truth. That voice of the divine that is indwelling every single person, that it is whispering truth into their heart. When we believe that about everyone, does it make sense not to be curious about how wisdom is showing up through them? It doesn't make sense, does it? If we really believe that Spirit is speaking through everyone, I can't chop enough times. Everyone. All of them, all of us, everyone. How could we not be curious about what it is they're bringing to the table, what brilliance we are missing because we're so focused on the truth that we've heard from Spirit within us. But we already know that. We already know the truth that Spirit's told us. It told us. Are we going to limit ourselves to only the Spirit, what it has whispered to us? Or are we going to open up to what Spirit is telling everyone? We can trust the wisdom in the people around us. We can trust the positive intentions in the people around us. We can be in a room with people with 10 different ideas and trust that everyone in the room wants the highest and best for the project, for the choice, for the relationship. We can do that. Take a breath. Because it's hard in the moment, isn't it? It's easy to forget, like Alice falling down that hole. It's easy to forget what we know when the situation looks choppy. It's easy to forget that we are abundance when the budget looks a little squeaky. It's easy to forget that we are always safe and sourced and supplied when we feel alone. But that personal responsibility step is deciding over and over and over again to reset our attention on what we know every time, over and over, by going into these situations that feel fraught, seeking rather than pushing. Asking questions like, tell me what about your plan excites you? I'm wondering what you know that I don't know, because you are really into this idea. And so I'm thinking I might have missed a couple pieces. Fill me in. Even just tell me more. Tell me more. I'm curious about your perspective. I am willing to bet. Well, I already gave up the Pomeranian, and I'm not allowed to bet the pit bull. I am willing to bet that asking those questions that seek rather than push an agenda get us there. Curiosity is love in action. It's about being more interested in understanding than in winning. How might that impact a relationship? It may mean not getting your own way, but it may mean a better way. It's about being more interested in connecting than in dominating, which may mean having to let go of some of your ego. It may mean not having the sash that says, best decider of things ever, forever and ever. Maybe we have to take that off. It requires being more interested in the relationship than in the immediate results. But here at New Vision Center, we have a system that has doubled down and doubled down and doubled down on this idea that it is more important to honor the relationship than the immediate results through our consensus system, which is not always the fastest way to make a decision, but it is the deepest way to make a decision. When we approach conversations and challenges and relationships with a deep, authentic wanting to understand each other and where we're coming from, not only do we feel that love more deeply and more authentically, but the decisions that come out of that relationship, they're stronger, more fueled, more fed by spiritual truth. So we end where we began. In the newsletter this week, I've been quoting some interesting gurus lately. This time it was Casanova. Yes, that Casanova. Giacomo Casanova, who was a writer and a commentator on 18th century culture and life and indeed romance. I'm not sure exactly what he was talking about when he gave this quote, but it really stands for us anyway. Love is 3/4 curiosity. When you care enough to ask, people feel loved. And from love, anything can happen. And so our invitation this week, and truly every week, is to choose to be love, to set aside being right or anything else that keeps us out of deep curiosity so that we can be that love everywhere we are. And so it is. So let's anchor this in with some prayer. Oh, how good it is to open up to the wonder that is life. To open up to the sense of possibility that is ever expanding as we lean into spirit and see that it is truly infinite in its own nature. How good it is to remember that this one that we call the divine is making itself known in, through, and as all life, including everyone within the sound of my voice. That each one of us is met right where we are with exactly what is needed. with more than enough love, more than enough abundance, more than enough wholeness, more than enough of every needed and good thing. That even as we speak this prayer, we are met with the divine yes, so that any cause or concern that came into this space, into this time together on our heart, that it is already being worked upon by Infinite Spirit. How good it is to know that that curiosity is met with infinite possibilities, infinite right ways to do things, infinite ways to love one another. And so with a grateful heart, I call it all good, every bit of it, and we claim it together as we say, and so it is.